I like what you put up there.
Nice. Well, hello. We're running a few minutes behind because I can't get my life together. I'm Tanya with Sober on Purpose, and I'm here with Tawny, who runs Healing Hearts on Facebook and has a conference coming out here soon about healing. And today we're going to talk a little bit about balancing love and boundaries, a family journey through addiction, which is a virtual summit. Now, Tawny's is a real live, show up in person, actually touch people, enjoy people's company. Conference is happening in Colorado Springs, and mine is a virtual summit gathering together between the two holidays. So I don't know about you, but holidays can be a little touch and go.
They can, right? Yeah, depending on what occurred during all of those times. I totally understand that.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. And when you bring a family together, right, we all have different expectations. I know that my husband's family did some things and we do some things, and now we have kids and we do some different things. What were your favorite holiday traditions?
When things used to be nice. Christmas. Yeah. You know, you get to open up one small package on Christmas Eve, and then everybody get up really early Christmas morning, and Dad would hand out the presents and we'd get to open them up. We wouldn't open them up, we'd rip them open.
But you were a single family member opener present organization. You didn't rip everything at once.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, because I wanted to enjoy that one gift. What about you?
We've done it both ways. Now that the boys are a little bit older, we do it one at a time. We have done the massive rip tear type thing. And the thing in my family, which saved parents, I didn't realize it at the time, but so Santa Claus did not wrap gifts. So anything that was out under the tree that was visible, like a bike or, you know, something really big like that, didn't get wrapped. And I'm looking at it from the mom perspective now, and I'm like, that was really smart.
Yeah. Oh, we did that too. Yeah. Anything from Santa was not wrapped. Correct. Yeah.
All those things. And then I must tell you, probably Thanksgiving, I like that better because it has the two components that I really like. Good food, friends. Well, there's three: good food, friends, and playing games. So I don't have to worry about all the setup, you know, that you have to do with Christmas.
Right.
So, and of course my phone rings. Hasn't rung all day, but here we are on a live, and here's my phone ringing.
That's all right. Yeah.
So what I'm preparing and what I'm getting ready for your audience, my audience, for a lot of people to join is I'm bringing together 24 speakers. We're not only going to talk about the holidays, but we're going to talk about things like emotional detox. We're going to talk about ambiguous grief. We're going to talk about the important role anger plays in boundaries. Man, I've got noise going on in all directions, don't I? So we're going to talk about all those different steps, and you're going to be able to access it. It's a free summit. You're going to be able to access it as you have time for it. You do have to register so we know you're coming. And then if you want to, the whole summit is free, but if you want to, there's going to be an all-access pass that you're going to be able to talk more in depth and work with the speakers as far as challenges, their materials, all those things. It's going to be just enormous. And we're doing it December 7th through 9th. So in between the holidays, when you're taking that break, getting back together from Thanksgiving, you know, headed towards Christmas, because I don't know about you, Tawny, but I've had some experiences to where I went, yeah, I really could pause in there.
Yeah. Well, we're both going to be busy that time of the week then. So that's awesome. I'll miss yours. So you'll have to fill me in.
Well, and that's just it. You can drop in. So it's virtual. You can drop in all day long, choose what you want to look at. And then if you buy the all access pass, you have it for an extended amount of time. We used to say you have it forever, but we know nothing lasts forever. So you'll have
Forever,
it
right?
for a little while,
Right.
as far as that's concerned. And some of the folks that I've invited are just amazing. I was talking with one of them yesterday about ambiguous grief with Stephanie Sarazin. It's this process that, yeah, we know when somebody dies, there's a ritual, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know what to do. Well, when somebody disconnects because of addictive behavior or because of estrangement or there's a divorce, there's not ceremony. Nobody, she said, nobody brings a casserole, right?
No. That's a hard grief. That's a very, very hard grief. I think I'm just saying, me personally, I think the divorce was easier than when the kids or the grandkids disconnected.
Yes.
Because it seemed like it all happened at once, and all of a sudden I was Job.
Yeah.
I was there all alone.
Yes.
That's tough. And especially around the holidays. Oh yeah. Because we think that that's everybody's supposed to be together and all of that. And then all of a sudden you're all alone. So I'm really, really sad. I think I'm just going to have to register so that I have access to that, because I think that would be something so amazing for me.
Well,
But as you know, where I'm going to be at the same time. So
you're going to be at your healing conference. So tell us a little bit more about your healing conference.
No, let's finish talking about yours.
Well, so I built in this grief piece because I don't want people to be sad about it. But what it is she really talks about external and internal hope. And I'm not going to spoil it because it's very important, the difference between external and internal hope. And what she's going to talk about for this seminar is the rituals that you can build. Like you said, we have these basic rituals that we've been doing for years and years, and we may not even know why we do those rituals. And some of them we may not even enjoy, right? We don't necessarily enjoy. I have an uncle who, even though I make homemade cranberry sauce at Thanksgiving, he still prefers the stuff in a can. And he ate my homemade stuff for years and then said to his wife, could we just bring a can? Because I really would rather have that. So we don't even understand why we do some of these traditions and some of these rituals. But one of the things about dealing with ambiguous grief, because we don't have a whole lot of rituals around it, there's no funeral service, there's no casseroles, there's no really space. In fact, people can be very destructive about it. They can say, oh, just get over it. This is what you wanted anyway. Now you're
I've heard those words. Those are hurtful words.
Be really ugly about it.
Yeah.
And how did you feel when they said that to you?
Oh, they were not my best friend anymore. Because it just hit me and punched me. I mean, that was horrible. It was like, really? Because someone's pain is their pain. Doesn't matter how you've experienced something similar to that or whatever. Everybody's pain is different and how they handle it. And so you need to be like understanding, and if it's something that you truly don't want to deal with, then you just completely back yourself away from it, right? But I mean, we're caring for other people and we're supposed to be friends, and we see them in all of this pain and that their heart is broken and their world is just crashed or whatever. We can have a little bit of sympathy for them. We can understand. We may not have gone through the exact same thing, but we can be understanding, right? But to say something so painful and so hurtful to someone else, that is so wrong. So wrong.
And so Stephanie also goes into something that I think Christians are at fault about is, she said, a lot of people came up to her and said, you need to forgive this person. And biblically, we're taught to forgive.
Sure.
But there's a timing piece. And she said, I needed to go through the process first. Right. She needed to go through the grieving process, the 7 stages of grieving. She needed to work through all of that. And it wasn't time for her to forgive. In fact, she really talks about how destructive that was, that people kept pushing this on her.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
she's going to talk a little bit more about that. And it's, in my biblical understanding, it's not that she was evading it. She was trying to process through it so that she wasn't fake forgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't just doing it. And Tawny, you and I both know that God sees the heart. And
absolutely.
it said, I forgive, and the heart really wasn't there. It wasn't time yet. So I can, as a theologian, I could look at that and go, God says, before you bring a sacrifice to me, then you need to go and deal with the forgiveness. I get that. But there's a process with that.
Absolutely.
So maybe it isn't time to bring the sacrifice. It doesn't mean that you're disconnected from God. He's still working with you on the timing, on the pain of the things that go through. Still lessons to see. And I know in my own life, I had a breakdown of a friendship that it took me a couple years. And in actually processing all that, I learned some really great lessons rather than doing what I have done in the past of just running and saying, I need this to be okay so that we can all be okay together. Right. It really wasn't okay. So that was a little bit of the issue.
Well, and it's just like that process is like grief too, because grief, sometimes you'll go through the acceptance and then all of a sudden you're over here at the anger again, and so it just depends on like what triggers us, what circumstance happens, the stages that we're in healing, but we have to go through those. And I think it's the same thing with forgiveness. For me personally, I chose to start forgiving because I knew that that's what I had to do for myself. Did I forgive? No, because there are still times that something will come up and I will have to forgive that person again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a continual process, I think, just like we come to the acceptance of grief or whatever, but that doesn't mean that loss is gone forever. It's still there, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you lose someone in your life, no matter if it's death, divorce, or just walking away or whatever, there's still that hole there. And so for me, I think forgiveness is the exact same thing. And I understand exactly what Stephanie is talking about. And, that isn't the first step in the 12 steps, right?
Right.
So, yeah, it's further on down.
Right.
So, yeah.
And when you get together with family members, I know we lost my mom 3 years ago around the holidays. When you get together with family members, like you said, that person really isn't gone. They're being assimilated in a different way. And talking about the rituals of assimilating that person, of honoring that person, of honoring your grief around the fact that they're not there anymore.
Right.
And recognizing that, because anger feels so much more powerful. We'd either rather numb out, get angry, but being sad and doing that grieving piece of passing through that is a lot of what we're going to talk about in this summit, is everything from grief to anger to forgiveness. I've lined up some wonderful people. And then there's another section, because I have a lot of people who say to me, well, how do we handle this with the children? And we brought our children through the process. We worked with the Betty Ford children's program. We worked with Celebrate Recovery's children's program. We brought them through the process with us. And that worked for us. And for those parents who are out there going, I am not really clear about what to do and how to look at it, I've invited some people from Be a Loving Mirror to come and talk to us. Bev is great about looking at that. Then there's another woman who's written a book called Mom Help Me, and it's about this opioid crisis and kids that get stuck with that. Hoping to have the Betty Ford Clinic children personnel on there, because that was just incredible for us. Really talks about separating the person from the disease so that you can love the parent and not like the disease.
Right.
There's some steps in there as well. And then we're going to have some real practical steps on how to manage your holidays. What to do when you get together in this family system that expects you to act one way and maybe you've changed significantly, or if you don't get together with your family system, how do you work through that? What rituals do you develop for yourself?
Exactly. Yeah. So when you're all alone and yeah, you've already put those boundaries in place and you have chosen not to be around a family that is unhealthy and, bothers you more, triggers you more, you don't want to accept that, that behavior or whatever, then yeah, the next step is what are you going to do for yourself? So for me, I remember the first time, it was 2 years ago. Um, Actually, it'd be 3 years, but I spent the whole day with God at Christmas, and people thought, well, no, you need to go here, and I'm like, no, I am looking forward to this. I was so excited about what God and I were going to do. And I tell you what, I spent the whole day in front of my fireplace just in prayer and him showing me over and over his love and his visions and his word. And it was the most phenomenal day ever. But I had to get to a point where I was being prepared for that as well, right? Because it was God and I was not alone, but I was alone. There was no one here. So I fixed myself a fancy dinner, and it was all about me. So I think when you're alone, you have to remember that there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing. And there's no reason that we need to feel like we're alone, because we are never alone. And I guess maybe too, for people that are alone, be able to say, hey, can I call you if I start feeling low or depressed or sad or whatever? Will you be my go-to? Can I call you? Or things like that, because not everybody in the world has somebody to be with them.
Mm-hmm.
Some people do want to be alone, but some people have no other choice.
Well, I love that opportunity that you gave yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What hurdles did you have to get over? How did you have to talk to yourself to be able to know this is going to be okay?
Well, luckily I was going through the 12-step recovery at the time, so I had learned a whole bunch of techniques of, the trigger points and how you process, how you go to a safe place, all of that type of stuff. But it was, the mental of, oh, Lord Jesus, this is going to be our day. This is a whole new beginning. This is me and it's you, just the thing of being new, me starting my own trend of things, and just those things like that, I think were so spectacular to me. And the fact that I was getting to spend the whole day with God, because you never know what he's going to do. So It's like, it's not that he surprises you, but he does surprise you, right? Because you just never know what's going to happen. And so it was exciting. And yeah, but the processing of, oh, I'm going to be here all by myself. Okay, so find a time in my life where I was feeling warm and comfortable and loved and cared for. And so I could take myself back to one of those. And then I was like, I'm in that safe place. So I knew in my mind I could go back to there and that I was safe, But also for me, just faith in God, you're not there. And all you got to do is cry out to him or whatever, but still putting your mind at ease and in that situation where you knew you were safe, and just some of those techniques that I had learned that way. How about you? Have you ever had to face?
Yes. And that's one of the things that I wanted to bring out. Last time we talked about Ruth and being covered by the cloak and feeling like, the beloved was taking care of me being the beloved, all of those things. So I had another experience last week of being the cherished wife. I think you kind of triggered it. And I began to look for it from God as the husband, God as not only the provider, but the husband, as being the person who is cherishing me. And that's something that kind of overwhelmed me in my prayer time this last week. Was not only would I like that from my earthly husband, but knowing that he can't provide that. He's human. He can't provide that all the time, every day, all day long, as much as I would want it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want it. but God can't. And so I read back through the story of Ruth, and then I read through Proverbs, because remember that woman of valor is in both places.
Right.
That God says, you may have gone through a lot of tragedy. You may have to use a lot of courage and bravery, but I'm going to be there. And so Ruth gets given Boaz as a cherished wife for him. And in Proverbs 31, that's the other thing, is your children will rise up and call you blessed. Well, not only that, but your husband will honor you. And if you are spending this holiday season as someone who doesn't have that familial connection, God is there to cherish you. He is right there to husband you. He is there to take care of you. The only thing it takes is some asking and listening.
Right. It's that easy.
And that's going to be part of what we're talking about. So not only are we going to talk about the emotions and the feelings and how to deal with those, we're going to talk about some strategies on how to deal with the actual people, because there are trigger points that we haven't thought about in the family system, except for when we go back to the family home or they come to us. And then we're going to talk about how we're going to look at the next generation. What children need from you. Where has there been some things that you need to clean up as an adult, or some things that you intentionally want to do differently going forward? So we're going to have a lot of fun doing this. This is not just going to be, me, but there's an emotional detox in there that it can take anywhere between 30 seconds and 2 minutes. So think about it. You're standing in the kitchen. One of your relatives has triggered you. You do this very simple emotional detox, and you're able to go.
Right. That processing.
I can enjoy the rest of the day. I mean, isn't that what it's about? You enjoyed that private time with God all day long. And we want to be able to enjoy our friends and family members too.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and step 1 says that we have to admit to God and to others that our life has become unmanageable, right? And then we've got to set up those boundaries. But we also have to know that we're not in control of anyone else, but we are of ourselves, how we act or react. Right. That's ours. That's all we can be in control of, right?
Absolutely. So, and it's our attitude,
right?
There's another great book that if people have not picked this one up, you should pick this one up. It's called The Anatomy of Peace. And it talks about that, just like this fake forgiveness, we can, and you've met these people, we've all met these people, we can be very nice, this syrupy, sugary, sweet, nice, but there's something in us that knows that person is still either really angry or really sad or really frustrated, even though they're being nice. And I think that's a lot of times how it plays out with close family members, is gritting our teeth and saying we're going to be nice.
Right.
Our heart is just at war. And one of the things that the Anatomy of Peace talks about is how to shift that. So that, like the people that you've also met who you think, wow, they are really at peace with themselves. They're at peace with me, even though this is not exactly what they want. They're not doormats. In fact, they have very strong boundaries.
Right.
They show compassion.
Passion. Absolutely.
Be there for other people. And we're going to talk about that too. How do I show up? Because this is the issue in families. Often we're put back in a family role that we don't play in our regular lives anymore, but we do play it when we go back to the household. Maybe you're the youngest child or the middle child, or, maybe you're the one who took care of everybody, or you kept the peace. How do you show up as your authentic self and love on people? Because that's part of the key, balancing love and love on people, but not be tossed back into that expected role.
Right. Well, and I know that the last few times that I was able to spend with family, because I'm the oldest, I didn't like that role. Everybody else can be in charge and take care of. I was done taking care of, right? I didn't want to be, I will always be the oldest because I was born first, right? But I didn't want that role. It's like, no, I mean, you and I've done that with my mom and dad a lot too, because I have an only brother. So it's more like, well, he's the one that needs to kind of like be in charge, or, when something happens, take that responsibility, and because he's the only guy. So it was relieving for me, because then it was like, I don't have to always constantly be there and take care of everybody. And it's kind of like, I think I've done a little bit of that with my kids too, because if I would get together with them, they're the mom, they're the dad, right? They can take care of the kids. I'm just there to enjoy. So I think that has come with learning that step one for me.
Yes.
So.
And not so often, it's not even really about the other people. We have to calm ourselves and say,
absolutely,
I'm valuable if I don't cook the whole meal, if I don't provide all these big gifts, if I don't take care of everybody, I'm still valuable and I can stay here and enjoy. And that's right. Really about calming ourselves rather than saying, okay, to be valuable, I have to do all these things.
The serving piece. And we're not saying the serving is not good. Oh.
Often we get resentful because we overdo.
Oh, that's me. That was me to the nth degree. Oh yeah. You serve other people first.
Yes. Yes.
And then Tani ran empty. Completely empty. Yeah. So we've talked about that, the self-care and all of that. So.
And then we wonder after the holidays are over why we're so cranky.
Right? Well, and then, that's it. That I'm going to be truthful here. That's the area that's bad for me after the holidays.
Yes. Yes.
That's the worst part for me. Some of that is because there was so many things that happened after the holidays that were devastating. And so I'm 6 years out now, but still the thought of that, and it's a whole new season, the winter, all of that, those can be very, very triggering for me. So I have now started putting into a place and processing, how am I going to make things different so that I'm not caught unaware and back in those, that roller coaster ride. So.
And that's exactly why I'm doing it this week, because December is the night before the new year.
Right.
So if you don't, we all have this, oh, well, let's just wait till after New Year's and we'll deal with it. But just like you're talking about, if we put into place these things earlier, no business would wait till January 1 to manage their first quarter.
Right.
So the business of your life needs to start rolling somewhere in that December and saying, this is what I want it to look like. This is how I want to intentionally show up.
That's right.
In that morning of the new year. So while we're in that morning of the new year, it's time to get a lot of things accomplished. I know that's a time for me where I'm like, wow, I can make a lot of things happen. I'm ready. I'm fresh. That's my morning. But that doesn't happen if I've been out late, eaten the wrong things, dealt with a lot of emotional crisis, all of those types of things. So this summit is going to look at, how do I do that self-care, that planning, that intentionality, so that when I get up on January 2nd, I'm like, oh, this is good. This is where we're going to go. This is what this year is about. Rather than, like you said, those high dips and lows involved in, it's cold winter for us, especially here in Colorado. It is, everybody's gone home. The sleepover is over. And there's stuff to begin to get back into the regular routine. Well, if you've intentionally set up your regular routine in a way that serves you, you're going to be ready to jump out of bed and go, yay, let's do that.
Right. Well, and I love new beginnings. I was just telling somebody this the other day. I love new beginnings, but that is one of those new beginnings that I truly, truly do not like. And so it was actually one of my clients said, well, maybe you should think about how, to make things different and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. Right. Mm-hmm. And so if we do those sort of things, like if we know that we're coming up on something like, the anniversary of someone's death, or, something like that, or the divorce, or, the loss of something or whatever. If we know that, I just think that if we start making different plans, making it a different, and then start thinking about ourselves too in a healthy way. People get so upset because I said, think about yourself. Well, that's so selfish. No, it's not selfish. It's healthy. So when you think about yourself in that process, what can I do for me? What is going to help me, to go through that day without stumbling so much, or, whatever. So those are things that I'm still learning 7 years later. So,
oh yeah. And maybe I do need to be generous with my grief and with my sadness, and
absolutely
be with it, work through it, and also plan some things. This is one of the things that we started doing, was different rituals. Because people were missing, we chose not to do some of the same rituals we had done before, and picked up some new ones. And we began to develop those, because nothing says that you have to do exactly the same thing, and that other things won't be just as much fun. I mean, my kids are old enough now. We haven't done it yet, but I'm thinking about it. There are lots of people who ski on Christmas morning. And because the presents and all of that stuff are not with older teens, that's not such a big deal.
Right.
It might be fun to grab some breakfast, go for a ski, and then come back in and play games. That would be a new ritual that may or may not last. But those are things that, thinking about that, can bring a lot of joy, instead of thinking about what isn't.
Right.
And I don't think I said it last time, but my new phrase is, I'm giving up on a better past so that I can have a brighter future.
That's good, right?
Because if I stay in the grievance story of, this is what I want and it needs to be the same way, then I'm staying stuck in a story that I can't recreate it. I'm a different person.
No. Right.
So
I heard someone say one time, and it just stuck with me. They said that if you're moving forward, you're alive.
Yeah.
If you're staying where you are, you're dead.
Well, it's like any plant. It has to grow. If it doesn't grow, then it's going to be retracting. And that doesn't mean that God doesn't come along and prune us. That doesn't stop us from growing.
No.
It gives us a chance to grow in a direction that's better. Right?
Absolutely. Well, and if we do stay where we are, because I mean, I used to hate changes. Yeah, because you get so used to that routine and things like that, and you just get, it just sets you off for whatever reason. But if you think about the fact that if you're staying where you are, you're dead. That means you're not growing.
That's right. That's right.
And my grandma always said, you can grow in numbers, but you could never grow up, right? And she just meant keep the childlike heart, but you still have to grow. Because she was a 92-year-old lady. She was still acting like a little kid, but she had more wisdom and knowledge in her than I have ever seen in one human being, So
I think that's part of the wisdom of age is, the phrase that don't sweat the small stuff. Well, maybe it really is all small stuff, right? When you look back from 92 and you've got this huge window, because when you're 9, you've got this little tiny window. When you're 19, your window's a little more open. When you're 39, you've got a bigger window. But from 92, you have this huge window. So was all of that really worth all the upset, that you didn't get to bring the cherry Jell-O salad to that Christmas because somebody else wanted to bring a lime Jell-O salad? That can set a whole family off.
Right.
Those are the things that we're going to talk about in that summit, is looking at how you want to show up and what is important to you.
Right. And what if your family is unhealthy, but you're moving towards being healthy, but you still want to be with your family? Okay. So what boundaries can you set for yourself? Because boundaries are not for someone else. They're not against the other people. They're for you to protect your heart. Why? Because God said that was so valuable, because that's where he lives. That's why he said, protect your heart above all things, right? That's where he dwells.
Yeah.
So those boundaries are for you. So how could you protect yourself? So I am really sorry that I'm going to not be there. Now, did you say that that's going to happen this next month, or is it December?
December.
Okay, so I won't be there. So I just want to clarify that.
In your own conference. The timing didn't work right. But I hear you about those boundaries. And what I really encourage people to do is think about it beforehand and think about pause breaks. And one of the things that my family, we figured out is when it gets really can get stressful in points, maybe you do need to go out and get another gallon of milk, whether you need the gallon of milk or not, right? Maybe you do say, hey, I'm going to go take a walk. Or if there's a little person there, little persons are so much joy. Maybe you say, oh, I'm going to go play Play-Doh with the little person. I'm going to go do this. If those little breaks are little graces for yourself, so that you can recover and say, yes, that was my boundary. Yes, I'm not willing to give up on that. Doesn't mean you have to be angry with anybody. You're just taking the break and saying, oh, not going to do that. The other thing, I'm inviting some folks, we're going to talk about food and how much that can really trigger behaviors. Because you know what we do at the holidays. We have a big party right after Thanksgiving. We invite people over and we make gingerbread cookies. Well, I found out just tons of candy, all kinds of cookies. What I've learned to do is I feed people first. We have like a super chili supper first. Because if I just feed them all that sugar, some people get happy, some people get sad, some people get angry. It's kind of like just handed out a whole bunch of booze, and I'm not going to do that, but that sugar really sends them to the ceiling. And then something we've added to it last year, I've become a big pickleball player. So I feed them, we make the cookies, and then we go down to our local rec center and we all play pickleball. So what we're actively doing is working that sugar out of our system. But I really have to recognize, because last time I had all the cookies prepared in advance. I didn't eat a whole lot of that, but I was still making icing when people were coming over and I was testing the icing. I'm going to make all the icing in advance because I was really struggling with the sugar content. So, whether you're a reduced harmer with your alcohol, whether you are off sugar, white flour can be a big issue, but all of those things we put in our body can really just yank the moods around. So I'm inviting some folks to talk about that. And it doesn't mean that you have to give up on everything, but instead of, a whole handful of gumdrops and Red Hots and then 6 gingerbread men, I've got to really pay attention and say, okay, I could decorate and eat one cookie, and then the rest of them need to be spread out, probably through January. So that's where I look at these traditions and I think, part of me says, but I won't get this again the rest of the year. That's okay. I will get it again next year. I don't need to gobble it all up now because my life will disappear. That's not true. I will have more life if I pause and think about how I want to show up and who I want to be. Because it makes me really silly, and then it makes me really sleepy, and then I get angry, which is not a great place to be.
No. Talk about a roller coaster ride, right?
It is. It is quite a roller coaster ride. So tell everybody about your conference so that they can know about that, and we'll end with, my summit's not laid out there yet, but yours is up. You have
yes, tickets are on sale.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I am getting so excited because it's getting bigger, and I just love watching what God is doing and opening all the doors and stuff like that. And so it's December 8th and 9th. It is in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and it is at the downtown Hilton Garden Inn. and it will be from Friday 9 to 4:30 and Saturday from 9 to 1:30. And the tickets are at TonniLea, TonniLea.com/tickets. And so they can be purchased. And the speakers that I have coming in, oh my goodness, I have lady coming in from California that's a huge speaker, published author. I think she's got like 13 or 14 books. And then I have one huge lady coming in from Denver who is a speaking coach, and she puts together conferences and all that type of stuff. And then I have another gentleman from Arizona. So I still have all these people coming in, and I have Queen Rosalind that is coming in from somewhere in the East. I forget exactly where she is, like Chicago or something. And she's the one that I just did the Esther book with. And so God has blessed me with amazing speakers, and I'm just utterly humbled at what he is doing. Yeah. And it goes just along, Tanya, with yours. I mean, these speakers that you have coming in, I mean, it's all about like what I have been through, the boundaries and the triggers and the PTSD and the trauma and the forgiveness and, the grieving and how you process all that and the steps. And so, yeah.
Awesome. Well, if you are listening to this after we've done the live, please leave a comment below. We'd love to get back in touch with you.
Yes.
This is all going on. It's available for you. And on the Facebook pages, love to hear your comments on what's going on. And we will look forward to seeing you again. Thanks for joining me, Tanya. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tanya. This has been amazing, and I am just excited for what God is going to do in and through what you're doing as well. And look at December be something to do with healing, because look at what he's doing.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much. We'll see you again in a couple weeks.
See you.